Alright everyone, let's talk about a plant that looks like it came straight out of a science fiction movie. We're going on an adventure today, but this time our subject isn't a slithering snake or a colorful frog. It's a plant, but not just any plant. This is giant hogweed, a true botanical behemoth with a dark secret. It stands tall, sometimes towering over people, with huge leaves and massive flower heads that can look quite beautiful from a distance. But trust me, this is one piece of nature you absolutely want to admire from far, far away. Getting up close and personal with this green giant can have some seriously painful consequences, which we'll get into. It's a classic case of looks being deceiving, a real wolf in sheep's clothing, or in this case a monster in a plant's disguise. Now you might be thinking, Jeff, it's just a big weed. What's the big deal? Well, that's where the story gets interesting. This isn't your average garden pest that you can just pull out on a Sunday afternoon. Giant hogweed is an invasive species, which means it's a foreigner in many lands it now calls home. It showed up, uninvited, and started taking over like a bully on the playground. It muscles out the local plant life, the native species that our own wildlife depends on for food and shelter. It changes the entire ecosystem, creating a monoculture of just itself. This plant is a true ecological disruptor, a green menace that poses a threat not just to the balance of our natural world, but directly to our own health and safety. Think of it as a biological invader. It arrives in a new environment where it has no natural enemies, no insects, no diseases, no animals that have evolved to eat it and keep it in check. This gives it a massive advantage, allowing it to spread like wildfire across the landscape. It's a silent invasion happening in our riverbanks, our parks, and along our trails. What makes it so successful is its sheer size and aggressive nature. It grows faster and taller than many native plants, stealing their sunlight and nutrients. We're going to explore how this impressive-looking plant became such a notorious outlaw in the botanical world and why it demands our respect and our immediate attention. So, buckle up as we dive deep into the world of Heracleum mantegazzianum, the scientific name for this formidable plant. We'll uncover its origins, track its journey across continents, and expose the chemical weapons it hides within its sap. It's a story of beauty, danger, and the ongoing battle between humans and an invasive species that has proven to be a powerful adversary. Understanding this plant is the first step in learning how to coexist with it safely, and more importantly, how to fight back to protect our precious local ecosystems. This is more than just a botany lesson. It's a real-life adventure with high stakes for both wildlife and people. Let's get to it. So, how do you spot this green giant out in the wild? You have to know what you're looking for because it has some lookalikes like cow parsnip or Queen Anne's lace. But giant hogweed takes everything to the extreme. First, let's talk about size. This thing is a monster. We're talking about a plant that can easily grow up to 15, even 20 feet tall. That's taller than a giraffe's neck. Its stem is thick, sometimes 2 to 4 inches in diameter, and it's hollow, with distinctive reddish-purple splotches and coarse white hairs. These spots are a key giveaway. Think of them as the plant's warning colors, like the bright patterns on a poisoned dart frog. They're nature's way of saying, hey, stay back. The leaves are just as impressive and intimidating as the rest of the plant. They can be enormous, stretching up to 5 feet wide. They are deeply incised, meaning they have sharp, jagged lobes, making them look almost like a giant spiky snowflake. This massive leaf surface area allows the plant to soak up a huge amount of sunlight, starving out any smaller native plants trying to grow beneath it. When you see a leaf that big, it's a pretty good sign you're dealing with something out of the ordinary. It's this combination of the towering height, the blotchy purple stem, and the gigantic jagged leaves that really sets giant hogweed apart from its less threatening relatives in the carrot family. And then there's the flower, which is probably its most recognizable feature. In midsummer, the plant produces a massive, umbrella-shaped flower head called an umbel. This structure can be over 2 feet in diameter and is made up of thousands of tiny white flowers clustered together. It looks like a giant piece of lace held up to the sky. While it's visually stunning, this beautiful display is actually a seed-making factory, designed to ensure the plant's aggressive spread. It's a stark reminder that even the most beautiful parts of nature can be part of a very effective survival and invasion strategy. This flower head is the grand finale of the plant's life cycle, a final act to spread its progeny far and wide. You'll typically find this botanical beast in areas with plenty of moisture and sunlight. It loves to grow along riverbanks, streams, and in damp meadows. It also colonizes disturbed areas like roadsides, railway lines, and vacant lots. These environments provide the perfect conditions for its seeds to germinate and for the plant to establish a strong foothold. So next time you're out exploring near a waterway or a patch of wildland, keep your eyes peeled. Knowing how to identify giant hogweed, its towering height, splotchy stem, huge leaves, and giant flower head, is your first line of defense in avoiding a very nasty encounter with this green menace. How did this botanical bully from a distant land end up in our backyards? Well, the story of giant hogweed's global tour is a classic tale of good intentions gone terribly wrong. This plant is originally from the Caucasus Mountain region, an area nestled between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, covering parts of Russia, Georgia, and Azerbaijan. In its native habitat, it's just another part of the ecosystem, kept in balance by local insects and diseases that have co-evolved with it. It doesn't grow into the monstrous, unstoppable force that we see in other parts of the world. It's a classic example of how a species behaves differently when it's on its home turf, versus when it's an alien invader. The trouble started in the 19th century during the Victorian era, a time when plant collectors and botanists were obsessed with finding exotic and impressive specimens to bring back to their home countries. They traveled the globe in search of plants that were bigger, bolder, and more beautiful than anything they had in their gardens. When these explorers stumbled upon the giant hogweed with its colossal size and magnificent flower heads, they were blown away. They saw it as a stunning ornamental plant, a perfect centerpiece for the grand botanical gardens and a wealthy aristocrat's estate. They had no idea of the ecological disaster they were about to unleash. So, with great excitement, they collected its seeds and brought them back to Europe and North America. It was introduced intentionally, sold in nurseries, and planted in gardens as a prized curiosity. People loved it. It was a status symbol, a living sculpture that screamed, "Look at me." The plant was celebrated for its dramatic flair and architectural presence. Gardeners of the time couldn't have known about its toxic sap or its aggressive, invasive nature. They were simply captivated by its exotic beauty and monumental scale, unaware that they were planting the seeds of a future environmental problem. This act, born of admiration, was the first step in giant hogweed's hostile takeover. From these carefully tended gardens, it didn't take long for the plant to escape. Its seeds are easily spread by wind, water, and even by sticking to the fur of animals or the boots of people. A single plant can produce tens of thousands of seeds, and once they get into a river system, they can travel for miles downstream, starting new colonies wherever they wash ashore. The ornamental showpiece quickly jumped the garden fence and began its march into the wild. What started as a celebrated import soon became a dreaded fugitive, spreading far beyond the control of the gardeners who had so admired it. The traveler's tale had taken a very dark turn. Once giant hogweed escaped the confines of botanical gardens, it began to show its true colors as a relentless invader. The secret to its success is its incredible reproductive power. A single mature giant hogweed plant can produce an astonishing number of seeds. We're talking anywhere from 20,000 to 50,000 seeds per plant. That's an incredible amount of potential new invaders. These seeds are built for travel. They are lightweight with small wings that allow them to be carried by the wind over short distances. More importantly, they float, which means when a plant is growing near a river or stream, its seeds can drop into the water and be carried for miles downstream, establishing new populations all along the waterway. The seeds themselves are also remarkably resilient. They can remain dormant but viable in the soil for several years, sometimes up to a decade or more. This creates what scientists call a seed bank. Even if you remove all the visible mature plants in an area, there could be a hidden reserve of thousands of seeds just waiting for the right conditions to sprout. This makes controlling an infestation a long-term battle, not a quick fix. You have to keep coming back to the same spot year after year to remove the new seedlings that emerge from this persistent seed bank. It's a war of attrition against an enemy that is patient and incredibly well-equipped for survival. The plant's growth cycle also gives it a major competitive edge. It's a biennial or short-lived perennial, meaning it spends its first year or two as a low-lying rosette of leaves, quietly gathering energy and developing a massive taproot. During this phase it might not look very threatening, but it's building up the resources for its explosive growth spurt. Then, when it's ready, it shoots up to its full, towering height in just a few weeks. This rapid growth allows it to outcompete native vegetation, quickly forming dense stands that cast a deep shade on the ground below. Smaller native plants simply can't get the sunlight they need to survive and are completely smothered out. This aggressive strategy allows giant hogweed to create what's known as a monoculture, a landscape where only one species of plant dominates. You can walk into an area that was once a diverse meadow filled with native wildflowers and grasses, and find nothing but a dense, dark forest of giant hogweed. It completely transforms the habitat. This lack of diversity is a huge problem for the local ecosystem. The plant has effectively conquered the territory, pushing out all its competitors and establishing a kingdom of its own. Its fast growth, massive seed production, and long-lived seed bank make it a truly formidable invader, a plant that is completely out of control. The invasion of giant hogweed casts a long, dark shadow over the health of our local ecosystems. When this plant takes over, it's not just a matter of it being an eyesore, it fundamentally changes the environment in some very damaging ways. As we've seen, it grows into dense, impenetrable thickets, and its huge leaves block out up to 80% of the sunlight from reaching the ground. This creates a dark, barren understory where our native wildflowers, ferns, and grasses can no longer grow. These native plants are the foundation of the food web. Without them, the insects, birds, and small mammals that depend on them for food and shelter begin to disappear. The whole system starts to unravel. Think about the wildlife that relies on a diverse riverbank habitat. Native plants provide nectar for pollinators like bees and butterflies, seeds for birds, and cover for small animals to hide from predators. When giant hogweed moves in and creates a monoculture, all of that disappears. It offers very little value to our local wildlife. Most insects and animals haven't evolved to eat it, so it's like a food desert for them. A riverbank that was once buzzing with life becomes a silent, sterile green wall. This loss of biodiversity is one of the most serious ecological impacts of any invasive species, and giant hogweed is a master at causing it. The damage doesn't stop there. The plant also has a major impact on soil stability, especially along riverbanks. Native plants have complex and varied root systems that hold the soil together, preventing it from washing away during heavy rains or floods. Giant hogweed, despite its massive size, has a relatively shallow root system for its bulk. During the growing season it seems fine, but when the plant dies back in the late autumn and winter, it leaves large areas of bare, unprotected soil. Come the spring thaw or a heavy downpour, there's nothing left to hold the riverbank in place. This leads to severe soil erosion, which muddies the water, harms fish spawning grounds, and can even contribute to flooding downstream. So, the ecological havoc is threefold. It outcompetes and eliminates native plants, it destroys the habitat for local wildlife, and it contributes to soil erosion and degradation of our waterways. It's a chain reaction of negative effects that starts with a single invasive plant. This is why we can't just ignore it and hope it goes away. Giant hogweed is an ecosystem disruptor of the highest order. Protecting our natural spaces means taking a stand against this green invader and working to restore the rich, diverse habitats that it so easily destroys. The health of our forests, meadows, and rivers depends on it. Now we get to the part of the story that really demands your attention. Because this isn't just about ecological damage. Giant hogweed is a direct and serious threat to human health. The danger lies in its sap, a clear, watery liquid that circulates throughout the entire plant, the stem, the leaves, the flowers, and even the roots. This sap contains toxic chemical compounds called furanocoumarins. These chemicals are the plant's defense mechanism, its own personal brand of chemical warfare. And if you get this sap on your skin, you are in for a world of hurt. It's what makes this plant so incredibly dangerous to handle. Here's how it works. The furanocoumarins themselves don't burn you right away. The real damage happens when the affected skin is exposed to sunlight, specifically ultraviolet radiation. The UV rays activate the chemicals in the sap, causing a reaction called phytophotodermatitis. This reaction essentially destroys your skin's ability to protect itself from the sun. The result is severe, painful burns. Within 24 to 48 hours, the skin turns red and large, watery blisters form. The burns can be as bad as a second or third degree burn, and the pain can be intense. It's a truly nasty chemical reaction that you want no part of. The consequences of an encounter with giant hogweed sap can be long-lasting. After the initial blisters heal, they often leave behind dark purplish or brown scars that can persist for months or even years. Even more troubling, the affected area of skin can remain hypersensitive to sunlight for a very long time, sometimes permanently. This means that for years after the initial exposure, that patch of skin can get sunburned very easily or break out in a rash every time it's exposed to the sun. And if you're unlucky enough to get the sap in your eyes, it can lead to temporary or even permanent blindness. This is not a plant to be trifled with. This is why education and awareness are so critical. Many people, especially children, might be drawn to the plant's impressive size or its big, inviting flowers, not knowing the danger lurking within. They might try to break off a stem to use as a play sword or touch the leaves out of curiosity. It's absolutely vital that everyone knows how to identify this plant and understands the importance of never, ever touching it. If you do accidentally come into contact with the sap, you need to wash the area immediately with soap and cold water, and most importantly, keep it completely covered from sunlight for at least 48 hours, then seek medical attention right away. This is one natural wonder that is best left alone. So faced with this toxic invasive giant, what are we doing about it? We're fighting back. Across the world, communities, conservation groups, and government agencies are waging a coordinated war against giant hogweed. The goal is to control its spread, eradicate it from sensitive areas, and educate the public to prevent new infestations. It's a tough battle that requires a combination of strategies, persistence, and teamwork. There's no single magic bullet, so we have to use every tool in our arsenal to reclaim our wild spaces from this green menace. It's a long-term commitment, but one we absolutely have to make. One of the primary methods of control is manual removal, but this has to be done with extreme care. Professionals trained in handling hazardous plants will dress in full protective gear. We're talking waterproof coveralls, gloves, and face shields to protect their skin and eyes from the toxic sap. They use shovels to dig up the plants, making sure to get the entire taproot, as even a small piece left in the ground can regrow. This method is effective for small, manageable infestations, but it's labor-intensive and has to be repeated for several years to deplete the seed bank in the soil. It's a hands-on approach that shows just how serious this fight is. For larger, more established stands of giant hogweed, chemical control is often necessary. This involves the careful and targeted application of approved herbicides. This is usually done by licensed professionals to ensure it's done safely, and with minimal impact on the surrounding native plants and water sources. The timing is crucial. Herbicides are most effective when applied in the spring to young plants before they have a chance to flower and produce more seeds. This approach can cover a lot of ground quickly, but it's often used in combination with other methods as part of a larger management plan. It's a powerful tool, but one that must be used responsibly. Ultimately, the most powerful weapon we have in this fight is knowledge. Public awareness and education campaigns are essential. When people know how to identify giant hogweed and report its location to local authorities, it allows for a rapid response before a new infestation gets out of control. Teaching children and adults about the dangers of the plant prevents painful injuries. By working together, reporting sightings, supporting control efforts, and spreading the word, we can create a united front against this invader. The fight against giant hogweed is a marathon, not a sprint, but by being vigilant and proactive, we can protect our communities, our wildlife, and the beautiful, diverse ecosystems we all call home.